So we are in a new episode of Catch of the Week, and first time I am doing it with two persons because we are two co-founders of a excellent Oxbridge Challenge, AI Challenge, and I was lucky to be invited. And thank you, Udai and Francisco. Welcome.
Thank you, Ursa.
Thank you, Ursa. This is a real treat. This is we're very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's also very exciting for me because we are very close to where I live. I'm very flexible now. I recently visited your competition, semifinals and finals, and there was a big excitement there. But before coming to the details, I want to know you more. What's your story? What's your background? And how you met? How should we start?
Sure. I mean, I'll get started on my background, and then how Francisco can talk about how we met and share his story, because it's quite a cool story.
Yeah.
And so essentially, I've been very involved with entrepreneurship pretty much all my life. Even though my family originally from a military or foreign service background, my parents' generation everyone's an entrepreneur. So my mother's got a furniture factory. She's an interior architect. She and my sister have an online furniture business in India. And my dad, even when I was like 11, was building, he did like an online lottery company. And part of this was influenced by my uncles on either side. One who started eBookers, which went on to be Expedia's biggest competitor in Europe. And he sold that for a few $100 million. And then the other one who started a massive private equity firm called Global Emerging Markets. So with Dinesh uncle, who is my dad's brother, hanging out for dinner used to be looking at Harvard Business School case studies. And so business was a big element, but impact is extremely important to me. So I've been very focused on social entrepreneurship, starting with when I was at university in Trinity College Dublin, as well as University of Washington. And then I started a startup called Tuki. And so my career has been either working for a 200 million fund based out of Singapore, but it's like a Michigan fund for medtech, clean energy, pure water, nanotech, or working in private equity in Africa, or just my own startups or helping others get started. And so when I came to Oxford, I studied masters in major program management because I've always been very good at early stage things, and I wanted to get more influence and connected to how to build things at scale. And so during that journey, it was a huge reflection. It was a huge reflection of the journey I'd had in the past 8 years with my startup Tuki, which focuses on insecure employment, AI, and market networks-based businesses. And I was looking at problems that postdocs and PhDs also had. And then I got introduced to Ox AI through a dear friend at Keble College. And essentially through Ox AI, I met Francisco. And I'll tell you the story of the competition in a bit, but I'd love to.
I'll listen to Francisco's story, but also I was really inspired by your story because I really think that where you grow or how you grow or the people around you also affects your life. I mean, if there are entrepreneurs around you, you want to be like them. But if you come from a corporate life, sometimes if it's difficult to jump to the other side. So what's your story?
Yeah. I think my story of how I am here today starts when I'm 14 years old, and there's a cohort of 100 students in my high school. And it turns out that at the end of the year, I was the only one who said that I wanted to go into this cultural exchange to Denmark. And yeah, it was a really interesting news because out of 100, I was the only one at that age to sort of take that risk or that leap of faith. And going to Denmark, I started to live with 3 different families from different backgrounds, where there was obviously this cultural shock where one of the families I was living with, and this is all randomly allocated, one of them was an engineer and my host mom was a nurse. In the other family, they were both bankers, and my host that was the CEO of the third largest Danish bank, and in my last host family was a musician and a teacher. And what was interesting about the experience is that all of their children would go to the same high school, which would be impossible in Ecuador. So this cultural exchange, they usually call it, is not a year in your life, but it's a life in a year. And coming back, I had this reverse cultural shock where I started to have this sense of social equality. Coming from Denmark, there's a very egalitarian society. So I started to think about, social change, social impact. But I was very young, and I think there was this cultural shock where the culture where I came back to didn't understand me. And I was very lucky to find this German girl doing her exchange in Ecuador from Dutch university, and she heard my story and she said, I think you're perfect for this university. So I applied to the Netherlands without also really knowing what I was getting myself into, and it turned out to be the best bachelor out of 400 bachelors in the Netherlands. So it was a liberal arts college, an honors faculty, where you essentially design your education. So there's 300 courses, and you basically start the year with an academic advisor thinking, what is your future? What do you want to achieve in the world? How do you want to do it? And how do we tailor education for yourself in this way? So in the summer, I go back to Ecuador, and I was in a kebab shop, and a little kid walks in selling candy. And I asked him, do you go to school? And he says, no. He was 7 years old. His name was Brian. And he said, I come to sell the candy to sustain my mother every day. And I think that was, in entrepreneurship, they call it an inflection point. So that moment caused deep reflection in my life. And I said, I want to change this. I want to do something about it. So I went back to my last year in university, and I took this course called Distribution of Justice, which started in the 1970s with a publication of Theory of Justice by John Rawls. And then 10 years later, Jerry Cohen, who was a fellow at All Souls in Oxford, created this book as a response saying, if you're an egalitarian, how come you're so rich? So his PhD student was my professor. And the idea there was, if you want to propose a way of how you would solve these issues, how would you go about it? And so I created this paper saying that creating these institutions that can share the liberal arts and sciences from a spirit of inclusion can radically transform and change the way that, our society is structured and human beings. After a week, I went to his office and I said, I want to make it happen. And then he said, let me introduce you to my friends around the world. And one of his friends who went to Cienspo and was doing something similar became my mentor. I was 19, so you can see the energy, the entrepreneurial energy, just trying to tackle complex challenges. And essentially one of them, both the founder of the university became my mentor, and he said, I'll fly home with you to Ecuador and help you do this. And the other mentor, they were both helping me. And after a year, I got a master's in UCL after studying in UC Berkeley. And coming back home, I was 22 years old back then, and it took me 7 months to set up the institution. And we were all on this scholarship where if you were able to reach the 10 first universities in the world, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Oxbridge, the government would pay and then you would come back. And essentially we created a network of all these brilliant students who had these scholarships and had to come back to the country. And we were teaching artificial intelligence back in 2017 with a friend who studied physics at MIT, and she's like, this is something that I want to share. And we opened the doors to everyone. There was no financial barriers to access. And through that, the pandemic came, and then the organization scaled to Latin America. So we started having students from Argentina, Mexico, Colombia. And I started to think the future of, this is going to be technological, it's going to be digital. And I called one of my friends from my first master's in UCL and I said, hey, I think this is the future. And she said, if you come to Mexico, I'll put half the investment and we can create a software company to develop the ideas. So I flew to Mexico, we created the company, and she got a PhD in Germany. And essentially she said, if we should find something in Europe for you to also lead from there. So I found the master's in Oxford, I applied, I got accepted. And coming to that environment, I think that Oxford is a very critical school in the way that they understand technology. And that sort of identity or that passion came back again to me and said, I want to do something to make this technology, more fair or just in in the way that it's constructed and developed. And I think the university has this approach where creating something that it's critical, that publishing is the path. But I also think that creating the technology was the path. And that's how I ended up in Oxford Artificial Intelligence Society. And,
And that's how you met Udai?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a place for me to sort of actually enact these things that I was learning in the classroom with these professors. So not only being critical and writing on papers about it, but also figuring out a way of creating it with our hands. And it was really nice because I received this message from Udai and said, they recommended me to talk to you. And we had this first call. It lasted like 30 minutes. And I remember I was like, this is great energy. I want to build with this person. And then, that's how we met.
So we used to meet initially once a week. Francisco was doing his thesis, and I remember he'd be carrying his bike along, and we'd go to different colleges and different parts of Oxford and just walk and talk. And he was accepted into Zinc, which is this acceleration program focused on impact. And so he was one of the fellows there. And so he was getting ready for that, and I was kind of recruited to be head of the entrepreneurship hub at Oxford AI Society. And so one of the reasons I agreed to joining the society, and specifically that post, there was a conversation about doing a competition with Cambridge, and that they had already had the conversation and it was going to happen, but my condition was I get to do it my way. And I had previously at Stanford, I was in the Ignite program. I had this fantastic team. That's where Tuki was born. And we got into the finals of the Stanford Basis Challenge, which is their competition. We were also in the venture studio for the business school. And I was for 8 months just being exposed to that entire environment. And that was the beginning of what later went on to me being in several accelerators, incubators, and even winning pitch competitions. So all of that, I had this idea. And leading up to when Francisco and I met, I was quite frustrated at Oxford. I had this incredible experience at Cambridge at the Maxwell Center called Impulse, which was similar to what I did at Stanford at Ignite, but quite kind of unique. But it was very here you go, let me introduce you to people. And so the problem of insecure employment was very focused and on earlier in food tech and blue collar work, but also I'd seen it in startups. And then through Cambridge, I was introduced to this problem with PhDs and postdocs. So when I was engaging in Oxford to try and do something, but also just try and be more entrepreneurial, you have to apply for everything, and access is very limited because it comes across as resources are limited. So even joining the seed fund, when I had run a 3 million, impact fund in Africa and had helped so many startups and was a pitch mentor and all of this, and been doing due diligence since I was 19, it was this was a bit interesting. And so I got, when I get angry, because I get even my entrepreneur journey coming from India, it's like being angry with just how shitty the world is when it can be so much fucking better. Forgive me for swearing. And so when I get angry, I build. And that's really the source of my entrepreneurial fire is I want to save the world. I want to change the world. And I have enough passion to move anything. It sounds very arrogant, but I'm just very, we call it my granddad who went to Cambridge, hearing his story in the past decade, this man went backwards, forward, left, right, center, just dedicated to his goal. And I feel like I've inherited his grit. And so at Oxford, with the society, I knew exactly how I was going to do it. And Francisco and I were talking about incubating within the Entrepreneurship Hub one startup. And as we were talking, he started saying, and I unfortunately lost my uncle and my cousin in a plane crash, but I went away, and this is the person who really mentored me for most of my life, especially the past decade, and I've learned so much from him in so many different markets. So I went away for a month to try and support the family, and when I came back, we had some people in the team, like Raymond in my entrepreneurship hub at Ox AI. He basically had really set up our relationships in Oxford. And so the application went. We had to postpone it by a week, but we had 88 startups, which was already ridiculous, because no one had that kind of deal flow. 60 from Oxford. We also had, at that point it was only 25,000 or 30,000 prize money, but we spoke to Microsoft. They immediately saw the potential of what we were doing. There's a great guy called Chris and then Keith. And so within 24 hours, they said, we're in. Because they saw the framework, and I explained how this was based on what I did at Stanford. And there's a lot of inspiration from other places like StarDex as well. And so they came in. Suddenly we were at 45,000 in prize money. And we had all these mentors coming in, and we created this incubator program along with the competition. We had 8.3 out of 10 from the startups. Super engagement. The quality was really high. And the finals was being hosted by JP Morgan in the Grand Hall. So it was like everything came together. Amazing partnership between us at Oxford and with the community at Cambridge. And while I'm doing this, I'm like, this is the MVP. Because I'd always wanted to build in emerging markets for more impact focus. I'd always wanted to build like a ecosystem of accelerator programs. And so this was like somehow my dream had found me again. And I was building my dream. And everything went out really successfully. Some of the startups, they went on to, Microsoft has the Imagine Cup. Two of our startups were nominated straight into the semifinals. They did exceptionally well. One of them was in the finals. I consider them as our winners, but they lost to actually a Turkish startup, which was also a very, very powerful startup helping people with disabilities. But Jorge from Mexico and Akshat from India, they're transforming the steel industry. And they're called JRE. It's amazing what you can do with this kind of technology, reducing or improving the efficiency like by 1 or 2%, which in steel like completely transforms the amount of energy you use and things. So that's them. We have Adalat AI, who also were one of the winners, who basically are transforming the legal system in India using AI again. Ignota Labs, the winners, they focus on drug discovery. And so all of this potential, even startups who didn't win, but so they're in stealth right now. But like we have startups who went on to like raise 3.7 million while they were doing their exams. And one of my favorite startups, which is RegFile, which does financial compliance, who are also one of the winners. These two boys from Nigeria went to Techstars right after the competition, raised 1.1 million in pre-seed, and they're killing it. They're just like, they're making 20, 30,000 a month on recurring revenue. So this was really inspiring, and we at this point Francisco had joined the team full time, and really helping engaged, understanding what we can do with this. And I had this vision, which is basically Oxbridge AI X, and Oxbridge AI X is like this parent company, which is built on Tukey's technologies and everything that we've learned in order to provide supportive and collaborative community for AI entrepreneurship. And within that, the challenge, the competition, is our flagship. So it's early stages. How do we make the pie? How do we make the pie bigger? Instead of how do you really empower, encourage, inspire people? And then we got very lucky with people like Tom Bloomfield, who founded Monzo, and Go Cardless, and then Ivan Zhao, who founded CEO of Notion. So they came to Oxford, and all of this activity is happening, and we've just been very grassroots in our endeavor. Wow. And 45 events later, we had the second one. Sorry, I just rambled on. But that was basically how it started. And we've just been building infrastructure for all of these people.
Yeah, normally, okay, as a moderator, I have to like stop you and ask questions. But when I listen here, I can feel the passion. And this may be one of the important things I see in the startups. I mean, there should be some reasons. For example, in your case, we said your environment, your family affected you. In your case, because you're from Ecuador, you wanted to change something. You wanted to solve a problem. But now you have some common passion. So it's the importance of team for a common goal. And there are lots of things coming together, but congratulations. And I think you mentioned mainly about the first one, and this year you made the second one. So why it was AI, by the way? I mean, why are you only focusing AI?
Sure. So, I mean, I've been doing machine learning and neural networks. So I'm very passionate about neural networks in particular, but all the algorithms for Tukey were machine learning based. But for 8 years, you didn't talk about AI like that, In 2017, computer vision was the craze. So everyone was doing computer vision in the Bay. But it wasn't called AI, It'd almost be like you'd be laughed at if you start talking about these things in AI. So when the AI society came in and I saw all of this opportunity, I was just seeing, I've been working against how to protect jobs from automation for like 8 years. But seeing the real potential of AI in how it's being engaged, it's actually like, especially during the pandemic, I saw this, the number of people who potentially would have suffered, but because they had enough time, they were able to adjust. And part of it's thanks to the technology teaching them more effectively. So I see this huge potential for AI. And for us, focus is really important. It's just part of my own kind of trinity of passions. And we see this like completely changing the world in the next, even the next 5 years, the world's going to look completely different. But the next 15, we won't recognize the world as we are today.
Yeah, I think to add on why AI, it's I think coming to Oxford gives you a really interesting opportunity to start learning. So I think across the board, all of the masters are, wherever you are thinking about the impact of machine learning and artificial intelligence in society. And that's sort of the masters that I studied was incorporating or trying to understand the impact of technology in society. And being in those classrooms with the professors, really questioning, what are the ethics, what are the values that are going to drive this technology. And I think when I was understanding the potential, the potential of it has always unintended consequences. So you have fantastic potential, but also unintended consequences. And I think Oxford was trying to educate us on think about both things when you're doing this. And I also think that the reason why it was AI, it's because if you're able to enter the sort of wave, you're able to have an impact with it in the future. So one of the things that I was thinking, and part of my thesis was the intersection of digital technologies, climate change, and learning systems or education. What I found very interesting was that these are all complex challenges that are being in discussion. They're very alive today. And I think that being able to do something from the beginning and making sure that you are there when the technology is being deployed or developed can have a huge impact. So it is, let's say, historic and it's a time coincidence also that this is happening at this stage. And yeah, it is good to be on the wave.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more detail about the competition.
Sure.
What was the criteria? I mean, how many applicants deeply apply? Was it easy to select them or eliminate them? And how was the format? Because I have been able to come to semifinals and finals. Can you give some more details about it?
Sure. Just to get started, fundamentally, our mission is to empower and encourage AI entrepreneurship. And for that reason, and just also identifying the amazing talent that we have in our ecosystem, in our network. And our network is not just people who, literally were in Oxford themselves. There's the people around them that also shape them. So again, something I borrowed from my time at Stanford was you only need to have one founder from either Oxford or Cambridge, and they could include staff or alumni. And so there's so many people, especially postdocs, who weren't necessarily considered Oxford or Cambridge, but they're fundamental. They do as good research. They're actually, supporting, encouraging the entire ecosystem. And we wanted to make sure that they got as much an opportunity as do alumni, as do undergrads and postgrads. And so that's the only criteria, is you have to have an AI component. It's a startup, so your business is as important as the technology. And only one person from the team has to be either from Oxford or Cambridge. And so other than that, everyone gets in if they apply. And as they get in, they're part of the community. So everyone gets all the resources, the masterclasses, access to the heroes like our mentors and things. We have something called Startup College, which is building on teaching people, the bare bones and beyond about entrepreneurship. Francisco and I get our hands dirty. So when it comes to mentorship or pitching practice or giving them exposure, we've even had people stay in my flat in HQ where Francisco and I actually been staying. So we've had 6 people live with us, one for a month. So we do absolutely everything we can to help people in the community. And so that's the criteria part. But in terms of the structure, Francisco, perhaps you can share.
I think one of the things that was a surprise to us was the sort of volume that we got this year. And that sort of demonstrates that the thesis that we had is correct. And the thesis that we're having is we want to create a home space for Oxford and Cambridge AI entrepreneurs. And by doing sort of the application process and reaching out to as many people as we could in the community, this need and this desire of finding a home to start, entrepreneurship in artificial intelligence, people felt heard. People felt that there's something that they can do, and that's like the month before the competition starts. We started doing the distribution and sharing with others. But essentially, once the competition begins, you have one local round in Oxford, one local round in Cambridge, and at the same time, we were doing 2 remote rounds, where all of these students from around the world or who couldn't be physically at those events can do their pitching. So we saw from the 220 that apply, all of them go to judging. So we have this fantastic community of 130 plus mentor judges, operators that have done their startups, that are AI experts. So they get the rubrics and they provide their scores. Then they come to the pitches. And on these events, so in the local rounds, 102 startups pitched. From there, same process, the judges are able to submit their scores. We do the scoring. And then 44 were selected for this year's semifinals, to which you were also part of.
Thank you. I mean, it was a great pleasure for me. And it was so, how can I say, user-friendly. I mean, when you give the rubric to me, I did my checks, and it was a great presentation also.
Yeah, and I think that is a very special event in the semifinals, because you have 2 rooms running at the same time, with different judges and the communities there. And it's a fantastic place, March Partners, for hosting the semifinals. And essentially from there is a similar process. Judges submit their scores, and the 10 that are best scored come to the finals. And the finals has this running order where essentially the partners that we have and the sponsors that we have get this distinguished category of being judges at the finals, and obviously because of their knowledge and expertise, and they decide through their submitting their scores and having this a live debate right after the pitches and who get the prizes. But we still believe that it is more than thinking about just making the competition or having a top 5 or top 10. It is really about giving people a space to just take a first stab on designing their technology, design their company in AI. So that's the spirit, and that's what we're really about.
With the challenge especially, it's like inspiring people to get started. And some people have been doing it, but they, it's also bringing that community together. So everyone, so out of the 220, everyone is going to get feedback. And when they pitched in the regional round and the semi-final round and the final round, they get that feedback when they're pitching. For most of them, it's the first time they've ever pitched. And so this, as an incubation program, you can see even the finals, we had some people who just barely started just before the competition started, and they've just gone so far. I think the level this year has been really high. Last year, we also had some fantastic startups, some who went to Y Combinator, Fast Forward, Antler, all of these spaces, but and Entrepreneur First. But this year, with the volume and everyone's engagement, we even launched our platform, Oxbridge AI X platform, which we're opening up more to the community over this Christmas break. And so we have out of 550 people who are just from the cohort, 330 engaged on the platform, which is really high. And that's where we give all our resources. People introduce themselves, our events, other communities, because we're trying to build the community. So other societies are actually advertising their events in the space. And so everyone getting feedback, everyone seeing how much we helped. Like I've personally, during the competition, done over 110 hours of mentorship. And that's just me. So you get a feel for all of these startups. There's some people who live together. So we want to encourage that problem obsession and the obsession self-growth. Like people who are very interested in growing as individuals, because entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is that path of self-growth, but also people who are just like really obsessed with solving a problem. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of times community. I think it's very important building a community, because there's not only startups, there's mentors, there's advisors, there's universities. So making this community is very important, and also I want to listen your future plans. But coming back to the competition, can you give some examples of the winners, and did you see any common goals or specifics about the winners?
Yeah, I would love to talk about one of my favorites from the beginning was called Omniscient, which is essentially hardware that is installed in different industries, basically to detect gas leakage. And this is a fantastic team that from the beginning inspired me a lot from Cambridge. Robin, Adrian, and Anne, they present themselves very elegantly, very sharp. And the reason why I really, I'm very inspired by them is because the impact that they can have it's fantastically huge in terms both financially, right, on helping the industry save a lot of money, but at the same time, it is very focused on climate change. And those kind of small, efficient changes that can have huge impacts are something that really inspire me. So that is one of the examples that I really like, but I'm sure.
Yeah. So I mean, Omniscient, they were so close, but they pitched so well. I actually had people come up to me in the morning being like, I just want to give them something. It's a very, like, 3 kids who are just like really passionate. But Decima 2 won the competition. They won the grand prize. These 2 fantastic women who are really doing amazing things in AI and entrepreneurship. So they represent Oxford and the Alan Turing Institute. So I think it's very exciting because they're looking at using this technology within the e-commerce space, and I think they just have the fundamentals to really succeed. Out of the other winners, perhaps the people that I'm quite passionate about is Dhamija, who came second. She's really she's just solid as an individual, as a founder. And I get very attached to the founders and how much passion they have and how they think about things and how open they are, and they just want to learn, grow, and succeed. And so she's got this very important mission to essentially improve. So it's in the femtech space, and so it's something that even the judges were talking about in the deliberation. That it really makes you feel how much we can do, and how it's just unfortunate. Before AI, we couldn't do some of these things. So she's going to revolutionize things. Then we have Inex, which was in the finals last year, and these guys are again fantastic team. They're doing things with the NHS that almost no other startup has been able to do. Working with 4 of the biggest trusts in the country, improving knowledge transfer. That we also have Gyre Energy. So this connects with our passion for impact and climate. So they're reducing the energy utility and helping cooling within data centers as well as cold storage. And again, Michael used to be a judge last year. He's one of the heroes, but he graduated from Oxford doing his MBA, and he's had an exit. He's a Stanford guy as well. Again, the team is just fantastic. And then finally, we have Ashkan, who's got 01 Creative, and this is. I don't know if you saw the pitch yourself, but I've been working with Ashkan for 6 months. He's gone from 10K in revenue to 100K in revenue. The whole team, the togetherness is really powerful. They have one of the co-founders who was in the army, so you've got all these elements of stability within the team, really good operations. They've seen an important problem in the creative industry. They've built something around it. He doesn't talk as much about the platform, which is really what they have, which is gonna this could easily be $100 million business. And I mean, one of these projects they did over the summer to showcase their technology, it went viral. 3 million views, helped the founders get 10 million in revenue. So these winners are fantastic. But Omniscient, Bullseye. I mean, people that I'm actually also very fond of. There's these 2 startups. This connects in your question of what is the next step. So we have this community and all of these amazing people who want to change the world, and that resonates with our cause. So we're trying to bring them together in different ways. So Bullseye, for example, is these really passionate boys from Cambridge and Bristol, and they've basically seen an opportunity to use computer vision to track people playing football. And I'm really passionate about football. I think you are as well. So you can any phone can be used to track you on the pitch, record you. You can post it on your social media, but at the same time, they've been learning from other people in the community. So there's another guy called Boschwan. So these guys, Cambridge, then in Oxford you have Boschwan, who has AI for swim. And Boschwan is like, he's got grit, and he was the most engaged, one of the 3 most engaged startups during the entire experience. And so he built the same kind of technology with his co-founder in China, but for swimming. And he's a professional swimmer, so he was like swimming for his university in China and things, but he was focused on coaching. And so bringing them together to learn from each other, this is an example of what we're about. It's like, how do we really create value for the world together? And so we're building forums, we're building clusters within specific industries. Francisco's going to be leading our impact cluster. And then there's layers of technology, like we're going to be improving on Startup College, as well as we really hope. Actually, I'm really trying to build an accelerator program. So for 10 of the most dedicated, motivated startups.
I'm happy to give all my support to you. I mean, if I have time, I'd like to make a podcast with the winners also, or with all startups.
Yeah,
that's how I can help you. Okay, let's try to wrap it a little bit.
That would be great, by the way. I'm really excited. I know we're all about giving them exposure, so I know they're already excited about anything like this.
Great. I mean, and also let's shout out to the sponsors. Maybe they can help us, and also we can use their names. Also, maybe you can mention some of the sponsors here. And also, I want to hear from both of you your vision. Then what is next? And finally, I want to finish with your recommendation to entrepreneurs or startups or the community. But first, your vision.
Yeah, I really like this question, because when you become an entrepreneur, really what you learn in any kind of endeavor is that you have to fall in love with the problem. And I think the vision and the problem that we have fallen in love with is, can we create a culture that is supportive, that is a home space for the creation of technology or AI in Oxford and Cambridge that can shape the future, right? So the mission is identifying these champions, identifying who these people are, and essentially the vision is realized when we are able to sort of solve that problem, or at least set the foundation of that solution, which is creating that community of support, which I really think it is in fact almost like cultural change. But I think going forward from there, once that is created, the amount of abundance, and as Udai called it, making that pie bigger, that I think bringing that mindset to these communities, to both Oxford and Cambridge and the ecosystem, that is extremely valuable. And so what comes with that is also a layer of our work that we'll be developing in the future, and I'm sure Udai has also something to say, but that's the vision, right?
Yeah, I mean, the vision fundamentally, Francisco said it, is to create the community based on values of support, collaboration, and innovation, and inspire to with doing it together. This togetherness inspires. So Simon Sinek says it really well. You're like, if you see someone doing an act of good or kindness, you get endorphin as much as they get endorphin from receiving and giving. So how can we really leverage on that to create this fantastic community that just wants to solve problems and then change the world through execution? So the vision, there's the short term, which I mentioned briefly. We want to level up on how we support the founders, more with technology, as well as building an accelerator. But the long term is like creating this extremely powerful innovation hub, globally connected innovation hub, because we have 30% alumni. We have this fantastic startup out of Malaysia. They've got 1.2 million users. It's a Muslim Sunni dating app, and they're already expanding. So we have all these amazing startups everywhere, and people fly in just to participate with the community. So how can we create that innovation hub and to enable more inspiration, more change? What that potentially looks like is, just creating on our market networks foundation, creating this platform, online and offline, for hopefully thousands of people to be able to start building their dreams and find fulfillment.
Okay, how can the community can support you? I mean, if people want to reach you, how can they reach you? And finally, what's your advice to startups? I don't know, who are shy, or I don't know. I mean, any recommendation to young startups?
Yeah, so I can take the question of how they can reach us. So we'll be very friendly on our LinkedIn, actually. So what we've done is basically through the language and the way that we're communicating, every time we do a post, we also put Udai and my name on LinkedIn. So we are inviting anyone who is interested on either becoming a partner or a sponsor. If you are a young entrepreneur, to text us directly. So you can send a message to us, also to team@oxbridgeaix.uk. We're very open, friendly to have anyone really just approach us and say how they want to share their support to the community. And LinkedIn has been our home space socially in the cloud, and it's grown fantastically. And we just want to make sure that people know that we're very open to having anyone that wants to support the community to reach out in a friendly way.
There's a lot of people who are within the community as they're growing their startups. They're looking for co-founders, they're looking for talent. So we're trying to help people connect. So reach out to us if you're interested in joining a team or co-founding. As I said, talent is everywhere, but talent understands and recognizes talent. So that's really fantastic. But fundamentally, everything that we've done has only been made possible thanks to our partners and our sponsors. So I want to go in order of the history of the people who really enabled us. So Digital Realty, which is the biggest data center company in the world, and they get all of their energy from renewable sources pretty much. They literally sparked everything for us because they were the first platinum sponsor that came in. And then Microsoft, as I told earlier, they've been incredible. We have weekly calls with them. We work with several teams. We actually got invited last week by senior leadership to have breakfast with them to talk to them about what we see in university-centric entrepreneurship. So we're really happy with that relationship. But we also have amazing companies like Stability AI, which is a unicorn also led by an ex-Oxford alum. And so working with her and Cameron have been really fantastic. And so, Taylor Wessing and Kelty, these are two law firms which really embody the culture that we're very interested in. So Mark Richardson and June and Samantha from Kelty, they've been very supportive. Mark is absolutely brilliant when it comes to IP and patents. So he just sees a slide and he tells you this is patentable. So he actually helped one of the finalists last year. And James, who's a partner at Taylor Wessing, he just has the right attitude, in my opinion, in terms of how to help the founders, how to build the relationships. He's given so much to the community. Then we also have, Jennifer Ding, who was in Alan Turing Institute, used to be really powerful in supporting us. We've done some panels and conversations at the institute thanks to her. And we have colleges at Oxford and Cambridge, like Keble College, which is where I am. Fitzwilliam as well at Cambridge has been very supportive. Who am I? And Marcha Partners and HV Capital, of course. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. The list gets long, but HV Capital, we're very excited about this partnership. They've just joined what we do, and they're one of the biggest funds in Germany and in Europe. And so working with Susanna and Bodhi has been awesome. And getting the message from them over the weekend about how good the talent is in the competition from such an established VC, that's powerful. But Marcha Partners, who also run our entrepreneur residence program, where I'm part of, it's just been amazing. The whole room is just XYC founders essentially. So you have this in Mayfair, this opportunity to really engage with really top class talent, get a lot of advice. Both the CEO and COO have been really supportive of what we do, because they even have a foundation to support entrepreneurship. And along those lines, the last person that I'd really like to mention is Chris and Harry, Chris and Harry from the Rutland Foundation, and they're very influential and supportive of entrepreneurship in Oxford. So they've just recently supported us. They came in last minute on the day, last week for the finals, to be we want to support you guys, here's some money. And so we're looking forward to working with them. And so
yeah, I think just before I forget, really mentioned, the support of Marshall Partners has been fantastic, and we really like working with them. Prashant is leading their entrepreneurship in residence, so that's also something that is available to everyone from the community, and I'm happy to meet Carl and Byron.
Yeah, and Will. I mean,
Will.
they've all been just amazing. It's my favorite day of the week when I'm in London. It's like going to Macho, and we have community members like Liho who really, like, again, 2 times XYC. It's just a treat to feel, you're surrounded by people who understand.
Also, I want to give a name who introduced us.
Of course, Daniel.
Aldrich, New Oxford fellow. Okay, guy, great conversation. Generally, I finish with a bit social touch. The name of the podcast is Catch Off, because people who knows me, that I have 2 big hobbies. One of them is fishing, the other one is basketball. In both of them, I catch something. So, do you have hobbies, and what did we catch today?
Cool. That's a good question. So
I can. So I jump onto it because I am just thinking about mountains. So one of my really like hobbies and like passions is to go up these mountains and glaciers as high as possible as I've been able to reach in Ecuador. So I'll be going up some mountains starting this week, and hopefully Udai will join soon on the hiking as he come into Ecuador to spend 2 weeks of December.
Wow!
Yeah, it's my first time in South America. I can't wait. It's really exciting.
Hiking and just spending Christmas with my family. It's gonna be so. On the way that I want to relate that experience or that hobby with what we're catching is that when you get inspired either by nature or by society or by friends or by family, when you're going up these mountains, right, it is really truly about thinking, I have a goal, but what's my next step? And I think this is the entrepreneurship journey, both when you're climbing mountains, going through this passion, but also very tough times. It is a sense of hope. So I hope that the community feels and our support, and it all comes out of this sense of passion and hope for what we can build that can have an impact in society, a positive impact.
So I'm like, for me, life is work and work is life. So I just love what I do, but I also love I'm a very traditional guy. So I like football, food, beer, and one more thing, which I don't want to mention. But fundamentally, being in nature. So after 3-month sprint, so I work 3-month sprints, almost working every day, and then I take 2 weeks off. So this time in Ecuador, just being in nature and having good food, and I wake up every morning, like, I'm going to swim every day. I'm going to, just because I haven't had a chance. The explosion of the startups and the growth we've had, 3x growth, has just been something we didn't plan, but it was full startup mode. But in terms of catch of the day, I'm actually going back to the community. I want the 2 people that we haven't mentioned yet, 2 of the startups in the finals. One is Jolt Sensor, who is alongside Omniscient and Inex and some of the other startups they're raising. And Jolt Sensor is actually doing fantastic things for large-scale bridges and infrastructure. They're basically helping save. So if anyone's interested in the space with mega projects, I really recommend looking at them, potentially investing in them. And similarly, Omni AI, is the 2 months old, like just about, fantastic team, working with already a big like professional partner with their research, and they I think are going to make a big difference. And so these are my catch of the week. And next week, I'll send you the next catch. Yeah.
Also, I catch. If you want to make Udai a bit more creative, you have to make him a bit angry.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Great conversation, guys. I mean, sometimes I also ask people what's their passion. Sometimes they think. I said, okay, the thing that you don't check the time when you are doing. When you are in the flow is, I think, one of your passions. So I'm sure in the mountains you are like this. When you are watching or playing football, you are like this. But I really enjoyed and learned a lot of things from you, and in the competition also. Looking forward to hosting you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, seriously.